In fact, let me mention two anecdotes that happened to me when I was in the legislature. In 1999, I got elected to be the minority leader in the Colorado House. And I was proud of that. It was a leadership position. My caucus picked me. And so I took all the staff from the office and some interns to lunch at some restaurant in Cherry Creek at the mall. And I said, before we get to the restaurant, I'd like everyone to ask 25 people who their state representative is. When we got to the restaurant, we added it all up. We talked to about 125 people, and about 9 people knew who their state, we didn't even know if they knew who their state representative was because we didn't ask them where they lived. But 9 people named a state representative, and we gave them full credit. So that was 7%. 7% of the people were able to name their state representative. And so since people can't name their state representative, it also makes sense that they probably don't know where the state representative stands on particular issues. They never call them and tell them where they want them to stand or where they want them to vote. They don't supervise their elected officials. And so the system works at about a 7% efficiency rating, which is probably accurate, and it works about as well as other systems that work at a 7% efficiency rating. I'll give you another example. I carried the bill to do background checks at gun shows after Columbine. All the guns that were used at Columbine came from the Tanner Gun Show in Adams County, and the Harris and Klebold went to tables where they didn't have to have a background check. Now, they weren't old enough to buy a gun from a regular dealer where they would have had a background check. So I carried the bill to do background checks at gun shows, and it made sense even to members of the NRA, because it was silly to have to do a background check at a gun store, federally licensed gun store, but anybody who wanted to could get out of prison in the morning for an armed robbery and buy a gun at a gun show that afternoon. It seemed not to make any sense. A lot of people believed in that. Rita worked with me on that. And so I went to a party somewhere around this time, and a woman came up to me and she says, are you the legislator that's carrying that bill to do background checks at gun shows? I said, yes, I am. She said, is it going to pass? I said, no. I already knew that I didn't have the votes in the House Appropriations Committee. I got 1 Republican vote in the House Judiciary, so I got it out, but I didn't have any Republican votes in the Appropriations Committee, so I knew it was going to die. So she says, well, that's horrible. After Columbine, all those guns coming from the gun show and all those kids killed, that's a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing. Why is that happening? And she got mad, and since I was the only one there, she got mad at me. And I said to her, do you know who your state representative is? And she said, no. I said, well, that's why the bill's not going to pass. And so, I think, so we have the American people basically taking a pass on governing themselves, basically squandering, the bloodshed at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Omaha Beach, squandering all the effort that went into getting the right to vote for women, African Americans, people that own property, that don't own property. Basically, American people have taken a pass on what it really means to have a democracy. And we have this basic dishonesty in our system. It makes most elected officials into liars when they speak to their constituents. And I'm going to go ahead and say this can be changed. I'm not pessimistic. I think that it's going to be hard. And one of the things we have to do is we have to look at people other than our elected officials to change this. We have to look in the mirror. Because the only people who are going to change this are people, we have the tool. The tool is the right to vote. And you can vote against people who take special interest money and for people who don't. That'll change it. Background checks at gun shows, Debbie Allen was a Republican senator, a Republican member of the House, and she ran against Bob Hagedorn, 2 House members in 2000, ran for the Senate. And Debbie Allen had voted against background checks for gun shows. And Bob had voted for doing the background checks. And we were able to use that issue and win a seat that had previously been held by Republicans. That was the year I won a seat that had never been held by a Democrat, and we won the Senate 18-17 for the first time in 40 years. The Democrats won the Senate. And we won it because of a vote on the gun show issue that we were able to publicize in her district. So votes do matter. Now, there have always been this element of tyranny in human affairs. There have always been people who want to get more than they deserve on the merits, or more than they deserve in a democracy. That's, we fought against tyranny to become a country. We fought against tyranny to protect our country. And our generation has this challenge in front of it, that other generations have had huge challenges as well. This is like the labor movement, or the suffragette movement, or the movement against slavery, or the movement for civil rights, or the movement against the Vietnam War. This is something that we need to take on. We need to take on reducing the influence of money in politics, because it's not just a terrible thing, it's a terrible thing that's getting worse all the time. There's more money being spent all the time. It's increasing, like I said, at 3 times the rate of inflation. More money is spent, fewer people vote, more people are alienated, more young people think they don't even consider being interested in politics because it looks like a rigged system. So I'm going to say that this is something that is our responsibility. Another thing that money does is it causes and I'm saying that the leadership I was an elected official, Lois and Irene are, and so leadership will come in some parts from elected officials, but in most parts it's going to come from ordinary people, because ordinary people, see, so many of the elected officials who take this money feel that they have to, and they benefit from it, and they're not going to rock that boat. I see Lois nodding her head. Yeah, I mean, I remember when I was in the legislature, legislators saying, "I'd like to vote with you, Ken, but I got a contribution from so-and-so, and I just can't." I mean, and they would never say that in any public way, but they did say it to me. I remember when we passed the limits on contributions. It used to be that you could get any amount in a contribution. We put limits of 200 and 400 on state legislative races. Doug Linkhart said to me, he said that he felt a lot more capable of just voting for the people in his district now that everybody could only contribute a certain amount of money. You wouldn't have to get, even a Democrat could, sometimes we would get large amounts of money from labor unions. And we generally voted with labor because we believed with them on the merits. But you wouldn't want to have to vote with somebody, even a friend, who you didn't agree with because of your concern about getting a campaign contribution next time. In fact, that's a good way to look at this. All of this money is being spent by interest groups that want to get an outcome that they can't get on the merits. If they could get it on the merits, they wouldn't have to give the money. See? And that's why the merits are mattering less. And the merits are the policies that help people, and that's what's mattering less. So I'm going to go ahead and say that you get bad outcomes. It makes our system dishonest. And it's like if I were to say to you, there's poison in the water. There's poison in the water. Would you say to me, well, that's one issue, but I want to work on education, charter schools. And I'm saying to you, there's poison in the water. And you say, and people say, well, I want to work on fracking. Or I want to work on things. Well, I agree that all those things are extremely important, but you can't get anything done on them until you deal with the corrupt system. The system is your tool to get progress on policies that you want. Your tool is broken. You have to fix the tool before you can get the policies that you want. And you can't pretend it's not broken and try to get those policies. And so many of our public officials pretend it's not broken because they can't face the fact that they have to argue with the major funders of all their campaigns. If they're not willing to do that, and most of them aren't, then the solution's going to have to come from elsewhere. So that's what I'm saying. It's a battle of our time, and almost all our nominal leaders are neutered in the argument, and you are the potential leaders. This whole sordid mess happens because the American people are distracted and not paying attention. And that's where we have to go with it. So I'm deputizing you all. What I say is, on the pyramid of power in the United States, the highest level is citizen. Under citizen is elected official. Because the citizens have to employ the elected officials. And when you employ an elected official, you have to pay attention to the job they're doing like any other employee. You have to tell them when they're doing a bad job. They have to have consequences for doing a bad job. And right now, they don't feel that they do. So the American people have it wrong. We need to help them get it right. And I'm planning to start an organization to support candidates like Lois and Irene and others who don't take special interest money. Because in my view, if you knock off a few candidates on that issue, the others will start paying attention. That's the only way it's going to happen. That's the only way it's going to happen. And we're getting close. We're getting close. The dots are closer than any. People saw how much money was spent in the healthcare argument. They saw the banks not get regulated. They saw what happened in the Gulf. People are starting to get it. We're just on this verge of a tipping point. Andrew Romanoff spent 1/10 as much money as Michael Bennet. He got 46% of the vote. And he was running against Barack Obama and 10 times as much money. I see that as being an indication that we're not that far away. We're actually close. I was encouraged with that result, not discouraged. So, and I don't have anything against Michael, but and I voted for him, but I feel that we've got to start taking on this issue and supporting those candidates who take that money. We're not taking on the issue. So I guess I'll got a few minutes for questions? Yeah, okay.